Let's unpack this. We tackle a massive variety of topics on the show. We've looked at the complexities of supply chains, the edges of theoretical physics, the depths of oceanography. But today,
Today's different.
today we are going to talk about something that creates a very immediate, very personal, and frankly, a very, very visceral reaction. I'm going to just say 3 words, and I want you to gauge your own physical response. Just notice what happens in your body. Are you ready?
I am ready, though I have a strong suspicion I know exactly which 3 words you are about to deploy.
Injection. Treatment.
And there it is. The collective shudder of the audience. I can almost feel it.
Exactly. It's the ultimate. Nope. It's the horror movie scenario. You hear needle and you hear eye in the same sentence, and your brain just screams, run.
It's an instinct.
It's instinctual. It feels primal. But, and here's where it gets really interesting, we have a source today that claims our brains, specifically our evolutionary survival instincts, are actually getting it all wrong.
That is precisely the mission of today's deep dive. We are looking at a fascinating piece of material titled Clear Vision, Demystifying Laser and Injection Treatments.
Right.
Specifically, we are zooming in on a section they call Episode 2, the repair crew.
Right.
And the core argument here, the entire thesis, is that the narrative we have in our heads, the horror movie, is completely disconnected from the medical reality.
The repair crew, I love that framing already because it sounds so maintenance-based. It sounds like fixing a sink, not some huge medical drama.
That is absolutely the intention. The source material uses some incredibly vivid and frankly brilliant analogies. We're talking gardens, hoses, spot welders, to move us from a place of panic to a place of understanding.
From panic to understanding.
We want to take that runaway response and replace it with more of a sit back and relax response.
Which sounds completely impossible right now. I'll be honest, even just reading the prep notes for this, I was wincing. I was physically cringing.
And that's a normal reaction. But the goal here is to demystify the technology. So, as the source suggests, we're going to meet 2 main characters today.
The weed killer and the spot welder.
Correct. These are the 2 main tools in the repair crew's toolbox. But before we get to the tools, we have to understand the job site. And even before we understand the job site, we have to address the elephant in the room.
Or rather, the terrified patient in the room. Yes. Let's talk about Fearful Fred. I love that they gave him a name. This isn't just a generic example. The source text actually builds a whole narrative around this character named Fred. And I think Fred is, well, he's all of us.
Fred is the avatar for every single person who has ever sat in an ophthalmologist's chair and received some, scary-sounding news. Let's really walk through Fred's journey, because the source material lays it out in such a compelling way.
So picture Fred. He's sitting there, maybe the lights are a bit dim, he's in that big exam chair setup, and the doctor mentions that he needs treatment, specifically eye injections. What happens to Fred in that moment?
The text says he almost ran out of the room, just gone. That is the flight response we talked about, pure and simple. But it goes so much deeper than just that immediate moment.
It's not just the initial shock.
No. The text notes that he lost sleep for a week. A full week.
That's the part that really stuck with me. It's not the 5 minutes in the clinic, it's the anticipation. It's the dread that seeps into your life. The source says Fred was terrified of needles to begin with.
Right, a pre-existing phobia.
So now you take a needle phobia and you raise the stakes to the most sensitive, most vulnerable part of the human body.
And this is where the psychology of fear is just so powerful and so creative in a way. What was Fred visualizing during that week of sleepless nights? What was playing in his head on a loop?
He wasn't picturing a sterile medical environment, I'm guessing?
Not at all. The source is explicit here. He imagined a long, sharp needle coming at his face.
See? Even saying it, it's that scene from A Clockwork Orange. It's a movie trope that we all have burned into our brains.
Precisely. This is what's so fascinating here. When we lack information, our imagination fills in the gaps. And our imagination, well, it rarely fills the gaps with boring, mundane details.
It doesn't fill them with paperwork and consent forms.
No, it's a terrible screenwriter for medical procedurals, but a brilliant one for horror. It fills them with the absolute worst-case scenarios. Fred's brain was directing a horror movie where he is the victim. He isn't picturing a medical procedure. He's picturing an assault.
And that week of watching this internal horror movie must have been exhausting.
Physically and mentally draining. Think about the cortisol, the adrenaline, just coursing through his system for days on end. His body was in a constant state of high alert.
So cut to the day of the procedure, the day he's been dreading. Fred has been stewing in this for a week. He's in the waiting room. The source describes his physical state in detail.
And it's pretty intense. It says he was shaking so hard the nurse had to hold his hand.
Wow.
That is a level of physiological arousal that is completely off the charts. His sympathetic nervous system is firing on all cylinders, fight or flight. He is bracing for immense pain. He is bracing for trauma. His whole body is clenched, waiting for impact.
And then the climax of the story. The moment he's been dreading more than anything. The procedure happens, the doctor does the thing, and what is Fred's reaction?
This is the twist. This is the moment the genre shifts from horror to, well, to a very quiet, very boring documentary. Fred asks, "That was it?"
That was it, just like that.
And then he describes the actual physical sensation. And this is the key takeaway from his entire narrative arc. This is the sentence that changes everything.
What does he say?
He says, "It felt like you just pressed on my eyelid with a cotton swab."
A cotton swab. Okay, let's pause right there for a second. We have a long, sharp needle in his imagination, the product of a week of terror
Right.
versus a cotton swab in reality. That is a massive, massive disconnect.
It's a chasm. It is the gap between perception and reality. And that gap, that space between what he imagined and what he felt, that gap caused him a week of genuine suffering. The suffering wasn't the procedure. The suffering was the anticipation of a pain that never arrived.
So the mission of this deep dive, then, is to figure out how that is possible. How do you stick a needle in an eye and have it feel like a cotton swab? And just as important, why are we even doing this in the first place? What's gone so wrong that we need our repair crew?
To understand that, we have to leave Fred for a moment and look at the biology. We need to look at the garden, or as the source calls it, the garden in panic.
I love this metaphor. I really do. The source material shifts from the very human, very relatable narrative of Fred to a description of what is actually happening inside the eye to require this repair crew.
Right. Because you don't call a repair crew unless something is broken. The source sets the scene by describing the eye as being in a specific, very desperate state. It is starving for oxygen.
Starving, that's such a powerful word. It implies desperation, a real crisis.
It is a crisis at a cellular level. The retina, the light-sensitive tissue at the back of the eye, it's one of the most metabolically active tissues in the entire body. It needs a tremendous amount of oxygen to function. It's constantly working.
So it's a high-energy environment.
Extremely. But in certain conditions, and this is key like diabetic retinopathy or wet macular degeneration, the blood flow is compromised. The little capillaries that feed the retina get damaged or blocked. The eye isn't getting the fuel it needs to do its job.
And when a living thing starves, it panics. It doesn't just sit there and fade away.
Exactly. The source text explicitly uses the phrase panic response. The eye, on a biological level, realizes it is suffocating, in a sense. So it does what any living system does when it's in trouble. It tries to save itself. It tries to grow new pipelines to bring in more blood, and with it, more oxygen.
Which, on the surface, sounds like a good thing. I need oxygen, I'll build more pipes. That sounds like a smart, adaptive solution.
It would be, if the eye were a better civil engineer, especially when it's in this panic state. But it's not. It rushes the job. It's like a construction crew that's been told they have 5 minutes to build a bridge. They're just throwing materials at the problem.
So quality control goes out the window.
Completely. Yeah. The source explains that this panic causes the eye to grow bad blood vessels.
And here comes the first big metaphor of the source, and it's a great one. The weeds.
Yes. Think of a beautifully maintained garden. You want healthy plants, your healthy blood vessels, structured in neat rows, getting just the right amount of water, doing their job. But when the eye panics, it just throws everything it has at the problem. It grows these wild, chaotic, structurally nightmarish vessels.
Yeah.
These are the weeds.
So these bad blood vessels, these weeds, why are they so bad? Is it just that they're messy and get in the way of the good plants?
No, it's much worse than that. They are functionally destructive. The source calls them weeds. But if we connect this to the bigger picture of vascular biology, these new vessels are incredibly fragile. They are leaky. They don't have strong, well-formed walls like healthy blood vessels do.
Ah, so they're not actually good at being pipes?
They're terrible at it. So instead of delivering oxygen efficiently to the starving retina, they leak. They leak fluid and blood directly into the retina.
Okay, so the eye is starving. It tries to grow new pipes to get food, but the pipes are made of cheap material and they burst all over the place.
That's a perfect analogy. And now you have a garden that is not only overgrown with weeds, but is also being flooded. That's the problem.
Yeah.
That is the crisis. And that is why Cheerful Fred is sitting in that chair.
The garden is in crisis, so enter the repair crew. Let's talk about member number 1. The source calls it the weed killer.
This is the anti-VEGF injection.
Okay, anti-VEGF. Let's just unpack that jargon for a second. Even though the source does a great job of keeping it simple, what are we actually talking about here?
Sure. VEGF stands for vascular endothelial growth factor.
Right.
Essentially, it's a protein. You can think of it as the fertilizer that the starving eye pumps out to grow those weeds. It's the panic signal. The eye shouts, "Send help, we're suffocating, grow vessels, grow them now," by releasing huge amounts of VEGF.
So the eye is screaming for help, and that scream takes the form of this chemical fertilizer.
Exactly. So the injection, the weed killer, is a medication that specifically targets and blocks that fertilizer. It neutralizes the VEGF.
It stops the signal.
It stops the panic signal. But I love how the source describes the mechanism of action. It says it isn't a mechanical removal. It's not like going in with a hoe or a weed whacker and physically chopping the weeds out.
Right, it's a chemical signal.
It's more elegant than that. It delivers a message to the weeds. And the message is simply, stop.
It's a cease and desist order for blood vessels.
That's a fantastic way to put it. It tells the bad vessels to stop growing. And in many cases, it causes them to shrink back and recede over time.
But the source goes deeper than that to explain the physics of why this helps so much. It introduces another analogy here.
Yes, the garden hose analogy. This is part one of the hose analogy. And it's brilliant for understanding the immediate effect.
Okay, lay it out for me. We're in the garden. We have the weeds, which are also leaky pipes. Where's the hose?
Imagine a garden hose that is under incredibly high pressure. The water's just blasting through it. And the hose itself is old and has tiny pinholes all along its length. Because the pressure is so high, water is spraying everywhere. It's a chaotic mist. It's damaging the delicate plants nearby.
Okay, I can visualize that perfectly. A hose hissing and spraying water all over the patio, making a huge mess.
Now, in this analogy, the injection, the weed killer, is the hand that reaches back to the spigot on the wall and calmly turns down the water pressure.
It just turns down the pressure.
Think about what happens to that leaky hose the second you turn the knob. The pressure inside drops. The chaotic, high-velocity spraying stops. The water might still be in the hose, a little bit might ooze out, but it's not bursting out anymore. It calms the entire environment.
So by blocking that VEGF signal, by applying the weed killer, we are effectively turning down the pressure in the eye's vascular system so the leaking starts.
Precisely. It synthesizes the chemical signal concept with the pressure concept. You are changing the environment of the eye from a high-stress, high-growth, leaky panic room into a calm, stable state. The emergency is over.
That makes the injection sound so much less violent. It's not an attack on the eye. It's a message to calm down. It's a de-escalation.
It is a de-escalation technique for your retina. That's really what it is.
But sometimes turning down the pressure isn't enough, right? I mean, the hose still has holes in it. Sometimes you have leaks that are just too stubborn.
Correct. The underlying structural damage might still be there. And that brings us to the second member of the repair crew.
Member number 2, the spot welder, or, as we know it in the real world, the laser.
Now, lasers, this is another word that carries a lot of cultural and emotional baggage.
Oh, absolutely. Lasers are sci-fi. Lasers are death rays. Lasers cut steel. If I'm Fred and I was terrified of the needle, I'm probably also terrified of a laser beam shooting into my eyeball.
It's a totally valid fear if your primary reference point is Star Wars or James Bond. But the source corrects this misconception immediately and very clearly. It says, it's not a cut, it's a seal.
It's not a cut, it's a seal. That's a really catchy, powerful line.
It is, because it reframes the tool completely. The mechanism here is using a very focused low-power beam of light to create a tiny therapeutic burn, which in turn seals specific leaking pipes.
Okay, so let's go back to the hose analogy. We've turned down the pressure at the injection, the weed killer, but maybe there are still a few pinholes that are just too big and are still oozing.
Exactly. The injection calmed the chaotic spray, but the structural integrity of the hose is still compromised. So the laser acts as the spot welder. The text imagines this as taking a tiny patch of superglue and applying it directly over one of the pinholes.
Superglue?
Think about that visual. You find the exact point of the leak, you apply a tiny precise dot of glue, you let it set, and the leak is gone. It's permanently sealed.
So the injection deals with the general environment, the pressure, the growth signal, and the laser deals with specific targeted structural failures.
Yes, that is the perfect way to summarize it. The injection manages the biology, the laser manages the plumbing.
I really like that distinction. Biology versus plumbing, a two-pronged approach.
And when you combine them, you have a complete repair strategy. You stop the new weeds from growing with the injection, and you patch the leaks in the existing pipes with the laser.
Okay, so logically this all makes perfect sense. I get it. I understand the garden, the hose, the welder. My frontal cortex, the rational part of my brain, is completely happy with this explanation. But my lizard brain, my amygdala, is still saying, yeah, but it's a laser and a needle in my eye. We need to go back to the patient experience. We have to circle back to Fred's "that was it."
Matt, let's revisit the sensation, because this is where the horror movie truly and completely falls apart.
We mentioned the cotton swab comparison earlier, but how do we get from long, sharp needle to cotton swab? There's a huge missing link there.
The missing link is the preparation. It's the groundwork. The source gives a piece of actionable advice here. It tells the listener to ask the doctor to walk you through the numbing process.
The numbing process. This is the unsung hero of the entire story.
It really is. In the Fred narrative, the entire reason he didn't feel a sharp cut is because the eye is incredibly responsive to topical anesthesia. Usually they use a series of eye drops or sometimes a little gel.
Wait, just drops? You're telling me there's no giant syringe of Novocaine first, like at the dentist?
For this procedure, no. Often, just a few rounds of very potent anesthetic drops are completely sufficient to numb the surface of the eye. Sometimes, a very small additional bit of numbing is used right under the conjunctiva, the clear outer layer, but the patient barely registers even that.
Wow.
The key is that the surface of the eye, the part with all the nerve endings that you expect to feel the sting, is completely deadened. It's asleep.
So when the text says you usually feel nothing more than pressure, that's a literal description. It's because the pain receptors are offline.
Exactly. And this is a crucial distinction that the expert in the source material highlights, the difference between pain and pressure.
Let's distinguish those two. Because in a state of high anxiety like Fred was in, pressure can easily be misinterpreted as pain if you don't know what to expect.
That is a profound and very important observation. If you are tense, if your whole body is braced for an attack and someone pushes on you, you might interpret that sensation as a threat, as the beginning of pain. But physiologically, they are completely different signals being sent to your brain. Pain is a sharp, noxious signal warning of tissue damage. Pressure is a blunt, neutral signal that just indicates contact. The text wants the listener to know. You will feel contact. You will be aware that the doctor is working, but you will not feel the sharp, cutting, piercing sensation that your imagination has invented.
It's exactly like when you're at the dentist and your mouth is numb and they say, okay, you're going to feel some pushing and some pressure now. It's a weird sensation, but it doesn't hurt.
That's the perfect analogy. And knowing the difference beforehand, preloading your brain with the information, okay, I am waiting to feel pressure, not a prick, allows the brain to categorize the incoming sensation correctly. It stops the horror movie projector from playing the wrong film in your head.
So Fred's entire week of lost sleep, his shaking hands, it was all because he didn't know about the numbing drops and the pressure distinction.
He didn't know the script. He was improvising a tragedy in his mind, when in reality he was cast in a very boring, very short technical manual.
Cast in a technical manual. I like that. It's boring, but it's safe.
Boredom is the absolute goal of medical treatment. We want boring. Boring is a successful outcome.
Okay, so let's synthesize all this. We've got the two main tools. Let's just look at them side by side one more time to make sure this is locked in for everyone listening.
Okay, tool number 1, the weed killer, the injection.
Its function is to deliver a chemical signal.
The action it takes is to stop the growth of those bad, leaky blood vessels.
And its core metaphor is turning down the water pressure in that leaky garden hose.
Perfect. Now, tool number 2, the spot welder, the laser.
Its function is to use focused light energy.
And its action is to physically seal the leaks in the vessels.
And the metaphor is patching the pinholes in the hose with superglue.
And the result of using these tools, often together.
The garden is saved. The eye stops starving. It stops panicking. The flooding stops. And the weeds die back. Vision is preserved.
And most importantly, from Fred's perspective, the patient realizes that the fear was by far the worst part of the entire experience.
That is the big, actionable takeaway from the text, and I think it's worth repeating verbatim. Fear of the treatment is often worse than the treatment itself.
It raises a really interesting point about medical literacy and just the power of words. How much suffering is caused simply by the opacity of the terms we use. If we called it retinal nutrient drops instead of intravitreal injections, would people be as scared?
No way. Probably not at all. Words matter so much. Injection implies puncture and violation. Weed killer, on the other hand, implies, well, gardening. It's a chore, not a major surgery.
And that's why this source material is so valuable. It does the work of translation. It translates the scary medical Latin into manageable, understandable backyard English.
So what does this all mean for you, the person listening right now? Maybe you don't have macular degeneration. Maybe your eyes are perfectly healthy. Why should you care about Fred's journey?
Because eventually, we all face a repair crew moment. Maybe it's not your eye. Maybe it's a knee surgery or a dental root canal, or just going to get a scary-looking mole checked out. The lesson of Fred is universal.
And the lesson is what? Don't let your imagination write the script for your medical care.
Correct. Ask for the facts. Ask for the metaphors. Be brave enough to ask the stupid questions. Ask the doctor, what will I actually feel? Will it be sharp? Will it be pressure? Will it be hot? Cold? Demystify the tools before they are used on you.
Knowledge is the best anesthetic.
I might have to steal that line. That is very, very good.
You can have it.
But seriously, if we connect this to the bigger picture, it's about agency. When Fred was shaking in that chair, he felt completely helpless. He was a passive victim waiting for something terrible to happen to him.
Right.
But once he understood, oh, it's just a cotton swab sensation, he regained his agency. He wasn't a victim anymore. He was an active participant in his own repair.
And that fundamental shift from victim to participant is what this whole deep dive is really about. We want to give you the tools to understand the world, even the scary parts of it, so you can participate instead of just endure.
Especially the scary parts. That's where understanding matters most.
So we've gone on quite a journey. We started with fearful Fred, shaking and sweating, imagining a horror movie needle, to understanding the biological panic of a starving eye, to seeing the simple, almost elegant logic of the garden hose and the spot welder.
It's a complete journey from terror to comprehension, and I hope, for everyone listening, that the words eye injection have lost at least a little bit of their sting.
Pun intended there.
The pun was mildly intended, yes.
I'll take it. Before we wrap up, I want to leave the listener with one final thought to chew on. We spent this whole time dismantling the fear of the needle by reframing it. We took a weapon and turned it into a chemical signal carrier. We took a burning laser and turned it into light glue.
It's a powerful cognitive reframe. It's changing the story you tell yourself.
Exactly. So here is my provocative final thought, or maybe it's more of a challenge for you to mull over. If we can reframe a needle in the eye, which is arguably one of the scariest things imaginable, as a helpful repair crew, what other terrifying things in your life are actually just repair crews in disguise?
Ooh, that is a profound question. Is that difficult, honest conversation you've been avoiding actually a weed killer for a toxic relationship?
Yeah.
Is that big failure you're so afraid of at work actually a spot welder that's strengthening a weak spot in your character or your skill set?
Oh, look at you getting philosophical on me. I love it.
Well, it's just applying the logic of the source material to life, right? Fear usually indicates we are facing something unknown or something that feels threatening. But so often, that unknown thing is just a mechanism for fixing a problem we've been ignoring for far too long.
The repair crew, it's not just for eyes.
Indeed. It's for everything that's broken and needs fixing.
So if you were ever in Fred's shoes for any reason, remember the cotton swab, remember the garden hose, and remember that your imagination is a fantastic drama queen, but your doctor is just a gardener trying to help things grow properly again.
Well said.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.
Goodbye, everyone.
Catch you on the flip side.
Hey, are we still recording?
Yeah, the red light's still on. Wait, what's up?
I just wanted to add one tiny detail about that cotton swab analogy that I think emphasizes the pressure aspect even more, and it's kind of cool.
Oh, go for it. This is bonus content for the hardcore listeners who stick around.
Well, just thinking about the physics of the eye itself. It's a globe, right? It's a closed, fluid-filled system.
Like a very, very sophisticated water balloon.
Exactly. A very sturdy water balloon. Now, when you press on a regular water balloon with the tip of your finger, what do you feel? You don't just feel the point of the finger, right? The pressure distributes throughout the whole balloon. You feel the whole balloon getting tighter, more tense.
That makes so much sense regarding the sensation. You're not feeling a pinpoint, you're feeling a general change in the system.
Right. So when the doctor applies the instrument, even if it's a tiny, thin needle, because the eye is a closed hydraulic system, the sensation is registered by your nerves as a global increase in pressure, not as a localized point of pain or puncture.
So the very biology of the eye literally prevents you from feeling the point in the way your brain expects to.
To a very large extent, yes. The hydraulic nature of the eyeball actually works in Fred's favor. It converts a potential poke into a definite push.
That is absolutely fascinating. It's like the eye has its own built-in defense mechanism against the perception of sharp pain in that specific context.
Kind of does. And knowing the physics of the water balloon might just be that extra layer of intellectual comfort for someone who is still a little skeptical about the cotton swab claim.
It's hydraulics, not puncture. I feel like we could write a whole second episode just on the incredible physics of eyeballs.
We certainly could. But maybe we save that one for another deep dive down the road.
Agreed. Okay, now we are officially signing off. Thanks for that last little nugget of brilliance.
Always happy to provide the extra data point.
See you all next